What does it look like to earn less than $1 a day and still call it a good life? What happens when everyone your age leaves for the city and you're the one who stays? And somehow, you're happy? Hi, I'm Hugh. I'm 26 years old, living in the Mekong Delta, Vietnam. Today is just a normal day for me. No boss, no office, no company name on an employee badge. No alarm clock screaming at 6 a.m., no traffic jam, no fluorescent lights buzzing over my head for 8 hours straight. A lot of people would call that failure. I call it the best, most meaningful decision I've ever made. It's almost 7:40 a.m. now. The sun is already warm on the tin roof, and somewhere outside, a rooster that clearly doesn't own a watch is still crowing like it's the most urgent thing in the world. I wake up later than most people here, not because I'm lazy, but because most nights I stay up until midnight or 1 in the morning, teaching myself how to shoot and edit videos, teaching myself English, one video, one mistake, one small win at a time. Right now, the voice you're hearing isn't really mine, it's AI. I'm using it because where I live, learning resources are limited, and my English still isn't good enough to speak to you clearly on my own. I hope you can understand that. But I'm working on it every single day, so that one day I can actually talk to you in my own voice instead of through a machine. So I can make better, more polished videos and give people a new perspective on rural Vietnam that they've never seen before. Not the postcard version. Not the version made for tourists. The real one, the one with mud on the roads after rain, and neighbors who still call out your name from across the field just to say good morning. Since I don't really have friends here, I thought building a YouTube channel like this could help me connect with people everywhere. People I'll probably never meet in person, but who somehow feel closer to me than the people living 2 houses down. Sometimes it makes me happy just thinking that one day some of you might visit Vietnam and come to my house. I'd probably make you tea, and we'd sit outside, and I wouldn't even need perfect English to make you understand why I stayed. And now let me show you why, even earning less than $1 a day, I'm still happy. After I finish washing up, the first thing I do every morning is open the order management page to see how many orders came in overnight and how much stock I have left. Every morning I open this page. There's always a little bit of anticipation in it. Some days it's just 1 or 2 orders. Some days it's a lot more. Some days there's nothing at all. It's not like working for a company with a fixed salary every month, where you already know exactly what you'll earn. Here, every day is a different number, completely dependent on whether someone, somewhere, decides to buy something from me. I sell a small stool made of natural wood online on an e-commerce platform. And the reason I even know how to run something like this comes from a job I used to have. A job I did for years. I'll tell you more about it later. Besides checking new orders, I also have to check my stock. How many stools I already made the day before, and whether there are any messages from customers I need to answer. Sometimes people ask about the size, whether it comes in different colors, how long shipping takes. All these small tasks I handle by myself. There's no one else to help. Today, I have one order. So now I'm going to prepare my tools and head out to make it, to have it ready in time for the shipper to pick up today. And now, it's time to get my hands dirty. This is the house my family is building. It's been under construction for over 2 months now, and it'll probably take about another month to finish. Every time I walk past here, I stop and look for a moment. Every brick, every pillar, is the result of years of saving, not just by me, but by my parents too. The place where I sleep and live right now is just a temporary shelter while we wait to move into the new house. It's small, old, and leaks when it rains, but my family has lived there for years, so we're used to it. It's just that knowing a better place is slowly taking shape right ahead gives me one more reason to push through every single day of work. I'm really looking forward to the moment we move into the new house, because it's been my parents' dream for decades. They talked about building a proper home ever since I was a kid, but year after year, something else always had to come first. Now, it's finally taking shape for real, right before my eyes. Walking down toward the river, I head to where I work. This small shed by the water is where my father has spent years of his life. There's no modern machinery or big assembly line here, just a few basic primitive machines and tools hooked right against the old corrugated iron partition. The sound of the air compressor, the saws, the hammers, alongside my father's calloused hands, have filled this small corner. And now, right here in this rustic space, beside the quiet river current, is where my wooden stools are born, carrying on this simple craft under my father's roof. These days, he's busy crafting the wooden doors in preparation for our new house. This stool is from yesterday. Today, let's make a new one to show my process. The inspiration comes from my father. His wooden stool is still strong after 15 years of sun and rain. People sit on these for daily chores so their legs don't ache, just like I'm sitting now. Plastic breaks fast. Wood lasts. Let's get to work. Before cutting anything, the most important step is always choosing the right material. A good stool doesn't just need a skilled carpenter, the wood has to be perfect too. Now, I'm picking out some fully dried wood. This ensures the final product is top quality and lasts a long time for everyone. I'll use this plank for the seat and this one for the legs. Using dry wood is crucial because it won't crack or warp over time. I'd rather spend extra time selecting the best pieces now than deal with a broken stool later. Next, I'll measure and mark everything carefully before taking it to the saw. Now I'll cut the wood, put it together into a stool, and sand it smooth and clean. Before I ever did this kind of work, I loaded trucks for a living. Rain or heat, it didn't matter. There was no such thing as a day off because of the weather. Some days I carried almost 10 tons of goods, straight from the truck into small shops along the way. Bag after bag, box after box, up and down the same steps, until my legs stopped feeling like my own. I'd start at 6 in the morning, and some nights I didn't get home until 1 a.m. the next day. No breaks that felt like breaks. Just enough time to eat standing up before the next truck showed up. For all of that, I made less than $10 a day. My body couldn't keep up with a schedule like that. I lasted 6 months. The reason I know how to run this online business comes from a job I used to have after that. I was a delivery driver for a while, a shipper, as we call it here. In the beginning, the pay felt solid, around $380 a month, more than I'd ever made before. For a while, it felt like things were finally moving in the right direction, but the job never let go of me. Not on holidays, not when I was sick, not ever. For an entire year, I had maybe 3 or 4 days off total. There was no one to cover for you. No backup driver, no sick leave, nothing. If you rested today, tomorrow's packages would just pile up higher on top of everything else, and you'd never catch up. So you just kept going, day after day, because stopping wasn't really an option. Delivering out here in the countryside is its own kind of difficult, and it's nothing like delivering in the city. There are no street numbers here. You learn addresses by memory. That house near the big tree, that shop past the bridge, the third gate on the left after the rice field. Most people are out, working in the fields all day and don't carry their phones with them, so sometimes you'd show up and just have to wait, or come back later, or ask a neighbor to hold the package. The roads are dirt, not paved, and in the rainy season, they turn to mud thick enough to swallow a tire. I've pushed my bike through mud more times than I can count. Some orders were heavy, a single bag of rice alone could be 10 kilograms, and some days I'd carry several of those, balanced however I could manage. On a normal day, I delivered more than 120 orders like that, one at a time, door to door, field to field. I kept that job for 5 years. Not because it got easier, but because I had a reason to keep going, mostly to help my parents rebuild our house into something more solid, as you can see. Every delivery felt like it was going toward that. But eventually, the company kept lowering the pay per delivery, little by little, until it didn't feel worth it anymore. My income dropped to around $200 a month. After gas, phone bills, and motorbike repairs, there was almost nothing left at the end of it. I was working just as hard, sometimes harder, for less and less. At some point I had to be honest with myself. This wasn't going to lead anywhere, so I quit. And I decided to build something of my own instead. No boss deciding how much my time was worth. No app cutting my pay whenever they felt like it. Just me, and whatever I could make with my own 2 hands. My father taught me this craft. He's been a carpenter for most of his life, and growing up, I watched him work more than I ever helped. Cutting, measuring, sanding, always slow and careful, never rushing a single piece. And the reason a stool like this lasts is simple, because he taught me to do it the right way, not the fast way. I use real, natural timber, not plywood, not particle board, not anything glued together from scraps. I buy a whole log, bring it to a local sawmill to have it cut into planks, then bring the planks home and let them dry in the sun for weeks. Not a kiln, like factories overseas use, just sunlight, the way it's always been done here, the way my father did it, and his generation before him. That slow drying is what keeps the wood from warping or cracking later. Even after years of use, even after rain and heat, and everything else this climate throws at it. And instead of a nail gun, I use traditional hand-driven nails. They hold stronger, even if it takes longer to drive each one in by hand. My father still uses portable power saws, not the machinery of a real workshop with all the modern tools. It's a small operation built by hand, one piece at a time, the same way it's always been. The math is simple, and it's unforgiving. Materials, wood and nails, cost about 70 cents per stool. I sell it for $1.15. The platform takes about 20 cents in fees. What's left for me is 27 cents per stool. 27 cents for a piece of furniture that will probably outlast the person who bought it. I could charge more, but out here, people know wood. Half of them grew up around a saw and a hammer just like I did. If I raise the price too much, they just build one at home. So the price stays low on purpose, because that's the only way this stays worth buying instead of worth copying. That's the trade I made, less money, but something that's actually mine. And after everything, the trucks, the mud roads, the years of barely breaking even, I still chose to stay here. Not because it was easier, there's a reason for that, and the rest of today will show you why. Now, I'll pack it up so the shipper can come pick it up later. Sold one order, one stool, 27 cents profit for the whole morning. But in exchange, life is easier out here in the countryside. Most of my school friends have moved to big cities, working in factories and industrial zones for better paying jobs. Places you've probably seen looking so lively in videos or through trips to big cities. That's also why I don't really have any friends around here. But honestly, once you subtract rent, food, and daily living expenses up there, what you manage to save at the end of the day isn't really much at all. As for me, even though I only made 27 cents today, I don't have to worry about rent. And as for food, well, just follow along and you'll see. That's just one small reason why I chose this life. Now, I'm heading out back, where the canals are, to check my fish traps and get ready for today's meal. The path there cuts through a small stretch of Melaleuca forest, trees standing in straight rows, the ground underneath covered in dry leaves and broken branches. It's quiet enough that all I can hear is my own footsteps crunching on the leaves, with the occasional bird taking off somewhere nearby. The morning air still feels a little damp, cool against my skin, the kind of quiet that only exists this early, before the rest of the day gets going. These fish traps are a traditional way of catching fish around here. No electricity, no bait, no sitting and waiting. You just set the trap in the water, leave it overnight, and come back the next morning to check. Fish, shrimp, snails. Anything that swims by and slips inside gets stuck and can't get back out. It's simple, really. No gear, no cost. Just patience and knowing where to place it. I set 3 fish traps, spaced pretty far apart, along the canal behind the house. The first one sits closest to the bank. I wade in, water up to my knees, the mud soft and cool under my feet with every step. I lift the fish trap out of the water, careful not to tear the net. It's old, patched in a couple of spots, so I always handle it slow. I reach my hand inside, feeling around through the mud and a few rotting leaves caught inside. For a second, there's nothing but the cold, slick feeling of mud between my fingers. Then my fingers find something small, hard, round. One river snail. I pull it out and drop it into the bucket, the sound of it landing barely audible over the water dripping off my arm. Just the one. I set the trap back in its spot underwater, letting it settle gently onto the canal floor. One snail doesn't sound like much, I know. But my mom used to say it was never really about the snail itself. It meant the canal still had life in it. Whatever came home, no matter how little, she'd always turn it into a meal. I think that's where I get it from, this habit of not needing much to feel like the day's off to a decent start. The second fish trap is much farther out. I have to walk a good distance through the forest to get there. This path I've been walking since I was a kid, maybe 7 or 8 years old. Back then I used to follow my dad out to the canal every afternoon, watching him set the traps in the water. He never explained much, just told me to set them where the current runs gentle, where there's shade from the trees. I never asked why, I just watched and kept it in my head. One time, I asked my dad to let me set a trap myself, right at the same stretch. I set it wrong, the current was too strong, and the next morning there was nothing in it. He didn't scold me, just laughed, told me to move it closer to the bushes instead. The second time, I got a few small shrimp. Not much, but I was as happy as if I'd caught a whole basket of fish. After that I started paying closer attention, learning to read the color of the water, the way it moved, to guess where the fish were passing through. There was one day it poured rain, and we still went out to check the traps, soaked through, shivering. My dad said fish feed more when it rains, miss it, and you miss the best catch. That day there were almost 10 fish in the bucket, more than we could eat. There were stretches where the traps came up empty for a whole week straight, and my dad never gave up, kept setting them every night. I once asked why he didn't just move them somewhere more reliable. He said there's no spot that's guaranteed. What matters is keeping the habit. I didn't understand that back then. But now, grown up, selling online, I get exactly what he meant. Nobody ever taught me this in any formal way, just walking it over and over until it sticks. Now every step through here is almost automatic. My feet just know where the roots poke up, where the ground gives way. Now I'm at the second fish trap. I look inside, nothing there. I put it back in its spot. Mornings like this happen. Check one trap after another, and some come up with nothing. It's exactly like opening my order dashboard every morning, not knowing if there'll be 5 orders today, or none at all. Nothing's guaranteed ahead of time. All I can do is set the trap, list the product, and wait. The third fish trap sits deepest in, near the bend of the canal, also the longest stretch of the three. This part, I don't walk it, I wade it. The water gets deep enough here that it comes up past my waist, sometimes close to my chest, so I have to hold the bucket up high with one hand to keep it from filling with canal water. The melaleuca trees line both banks here, thin and tall, their reflections sitting still on the surface, until I push through and break them apart with every step. The water feels cooler the deeper I go, and thicker too, silt stirred up from the bottom with every movement. At the bend, I lift the third fish trap out and reach my hand inside. This time, there's a small rattling sound against my fingers, different from the first two. A few snails, tangled up in leaves and mud at the bottom. I pull them out one by one and drop them into the bucket. This stretch, when I was a kid, scared me the most. My dad used to say water snakes like to hide around this bend, told me to keep my eyes on the water and never reach blindly into anything floating past. One time, wading through, I felt something brush against my leg and nearly jumped out of my skin. Turned out it was just a fish darting past. My dad was laughing so hard he could barely breathe, while my heart kept pounding the rest of the walk. Now that I'm older, wading through here alone doesn't scare me the way it used to, but I still move a little slower through this part, careful with my footing on the muddy canal floor. So that's today's catch. Enough for this afternoon's meal. Not a lot, but enough. The sky's turning dark now, clouds rolling in fast. Looks like rain's coming. I should head back before it hits. When I get to the house, it starts raining too. Now I'll get some clothes ready and go take a shower. By the time I'm done washing up, there's already a pot going on the wood stove. Lunch on the way. No gas stove needed, just a few dry branches picked up around the garden are enough to cook a full meal for the whole family. It's almost a shared tradition across the countryside here, not only because it saves on fuel costs, but because cooking over wood fire gives the food a very distinct flavor, something you simply can't find anywhere else. Many people from here, who now work far away, still miss this exact taste, the smell of wood smoke soaked into every dish, something no gas stove or electric burner could ever recreate. As for me, I grew up with that same smell of wood smoke, part of my childhood memories, tied to family meals shared together. Now, the whole family sits down together. It's raining outside, so it already feels like nighttime. Nothing fancy about this meal, just rice, whatever we have. But it's the same table, every day, with the same people, and the real reason I don't leave is my parents. Their generation had it harder than mine. Less income, more hardship, fewer choices. But they worked every single day, rain or shine, without a single complaint, to raise me and my siblings. Life was never comfortable, just enough, never anything extra. But full of care, they spent more than half their lives raising us. If children are the one project a parent spends over half their life building, then I don't want to be the kind of child who leaves once it's done, who lets them spend the rest of their years alone, in the same house where they raised me. I want to still be here, not like a guest who only shows up once a year for the holidays. A guest in my own family's house, but someone who's actually present. Someone who's there when they need help. Someone who still eats with them every day, at the same table, in the same house they've lived in their whole lives. My parents are getting older now. I don't know how many more meals like this one we'll get to share. But I know I don't want them growing old alone, waiting for a phone call that only comes once a year. They gave everything during more than half of my life. It feels right to spend whatever time is left giving something back. Not money, but presence. I cried writing this part, because it brought back memories of growing up with my family. The hard, exhausting years my parents spent raising me. But I know not everyone sees it this way. Everyone has their own definition of a good life. For some, it's money. For others, it's a title, a position, a name on a door. For me, it's this: waking up close to the people who raised me, eating at the same table twice a day, every day, making something with my own two hands and watching it hold up over the years, the same way my dad's chairs always did. Some days I make 27 cents, but every day I get to be here, and that's enough for my life to mean something. What about you? How long has it been since you last sat down for a meal with your own family? Thank you for watching until the end. Subscribe to the channel to learn more about life in rural Vietnam.